Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis and Eric Olson.
And welcome to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me.
Eric Olson.
Oh, Eric, it's another week, and tonight is a great paranormal night because we have a really cool guest on tap tonight. Someone that you met, someone that you actually met physically, and that's always cool.
In person, and he was really interesting, and he was kind of starting to tell me about some of the things he's been working on since his book that we'll be talking about, was published, and it was even more interesting from a paranormal perspective. But the book itself is really fascinating. At first I was like, well, you know what? The juxtaposition of tarot and kind of the natural world throughout the Rust Belt, and there's still plenty of natural world left.
Oh, yeah, tons.
And so, I thought, ooh, that's odd, and I'm not...
Right up our alley.
Yeah, exactly. But when you look at the real thing, when you look at the book itself, it's a series of really, actually very profound essays where he takes the archetypes of the tarot cards and applies them to actual individual animals and plants in this general region, and sort of does a tarot workup on them as if they were people. So you end up with a very strange juxtaposition between humanity, the natural world, and it ends up being very mystical, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, so stay tuned top of the next hour for Matt Stansberry, and he'll be joining us to talk about both the book and what paranormal things he's up to these days. So it'll be a lot of fun to tune in for that. Now, there's a lot of strange news floating about, Eric. Tons of it, and I like a good yarn about strange news. Did you know that Frank Zappa's going back on tour?
He's touring again, is he?
He is. Frank Zappa going on tour again as a hologram.
Oh, man.
How do you feel about that? How do you feel about these legendary rockers coming back from beyond the grave in hologram form?
I don't know, because I haven't seen it. I know they did it with Amy Winehouse. Who else have they done it with? I think they tried it with Michael Jackson at some point.
And I want to say they tried it with Jim Morrison as well.
Maybe so. So I haven't seen it in person, and I can't really judge it until I get what does it feel like? You know what I mean?
I would think
feel artificial. Does it feel weird? I don't know.
I don't know how I feel about it either. I mean, you're taking these legendary rockers and you're bringing them back from the grave. In essence, it's just a recording. That's all it is, a recording with their likeness singing. I mean, isn't that called a music video?
Yeah, basically. It's just the whiz-bang element of the hologram technology. So it appears 3D. It appears as if they're there, at least to a certain extent. I think you can still kind of see through them, right?
Yeah.
Basically. But, it's basically the help me Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I know. And hologram production company called Illusion recently announced that the hologram tour of renowned musician Frank Zappa will kick off April 19th at Capitol Theater in Port Chester, New York. The tour, titled The Bizarre World of Frank Zappa, stems from never-before-seen videos of his performances that have been locked away under lock and key for more than 40 years. Born on December 21st, 1941, the American musician and composer is known for his free-form music improvisation, sound experiences, and music veracity. Frank Zappa, I don't really remember him. He was a little before my time, so I don't really remember Frank. What do you know about Frank?
Oh, I know a lot about Frank. Frank, real interesting, unusual, strange combination of characteristics. On the one hand, he was this total, really hardcore free speech guy, and he actually appeared before Congress.
I do remember that with Twisted Sister frontman Dee Snider, of all things.
I believe you were right. Defending the artistic expression and the First Amendment and free speech. And so he was very, very important in that regard. In his own work, a lot of what he did, a lot of his lyrics were actually very kind of sarcastic and rather childish and strange and weird and just kind of a lot of potty mouth sort of stuff. And he was someone who you could never tell how serious he was from the lyrical and from the persona standpoint. He was always very serious about the music, and he was a tremendous guitar player. He could do any style. I always thought I had wished that he had applied himself more to making. He was one of these guys. He had his own ear, and it was not exactly what my ear is.
Sure.
But he also wrote these like you were reading from the description. He wrote very serious, lengthy, what you would call, contemporary classical pieces, as well as quote unquote songs. But even his songs, his band had to be really high end, top notch musicians to follow him where he took his lead, because there was so much of it was improvised, and he would just segue from one song into another just by announcing it, And so the musicians really had to be on their toes. And so if you wanted to see just an amazing show of jazz, rock, kind of fusion musicians, his bands were always tremendous. He was always worth seeing live. I probably saw him, at least 5 and probably not 10, somewhere between 5 and 10 times. Every time was extremely different.
Yeah.
Every time was unbelievable musically. Some of them were more entertaining shows than others. When he decided to focus on his, quote unquote hits, which doesn't mean much because he only had a handful, but the more listenable, the more ear pleasing material, then he could be very appealing and very friendly sounding with his music. Ultimately, I guess it was kind of blues based, but it just went in so many different directions.
Well, wasn't he a bit of a comedian as well? Some of his work was more comedic.
It was.
Okay.
It was, but I didn't find it that funny because it was just so. It was too blatant for me. You know what I mean? There's nothing very
lowbrow. It was kind of lowbrow.
It was very
humor.
lowbrow. It's exactly right. And a lot of times, he was just trying to make a point. He was always he's making points about society, about the music business. He was always wailing on the music business. I mean, from day one, he had it made a target of the music business.
Sure.
And
well,
of course, of society and on and on.
Yeah. Well, he did go to war against Tipper Gore on Capitol Hill. Him and Dee Snider did appear in front of Congress. He dubbed the war against naughty words. And that's exactly what he went to war against, was to not be censored.
Exactly.
And really, quite honestly, it was a doomed fight anyway, because the First Amendment was there. Come on. I don't even know what that was all about, other than just political football, just to, make it sound like they're doing something for the children. They didn't stand a chance in hell. The First Amendment's so cut and dry. I didn't even know what that was about, to be honest.
It was that era. It was we got to protect the children. And it was censor. It wasn't even so much censorship. It was labeling. So it was labeling CDs. It was labeling films. It was labeling books. As to their content. And he really objected to music, to art, quote unquote, being labeled in such a manner. He wanted it to be left alone. And, it's always a compromise. Walmart censors too, or at least they used to.
They still do. There's still Walmart censorship going on, which I've never agreed with. I've never been a big fan of censorship, and I've always thought it was dirty pool to throw in. What about the children? When you're only trying to pass your own agenda. I always thought that was really, really horrible. What about the children? And that's exactly what happened. Good old Tipper Gore.
Yep.
And so unfortunately or fortunately, we watched that all play out, and the labels did happen eventually anyway. So, but that's Frank Zappa. You can catch him if you want to in hologram form coming later on this April. So,
And the other, just to add one more little item, as a live performer, on the one hand, he was a just brilliant musician. He was an astonishing guitar player and band leader, but he wasn't all that dynamic a live performer. So that's the other part I'm a little concerned about. I mean, if you're watching Michael Jackson or even Amy Winehouse, you're seeing them put on a show. Zappa just stood there and played his guitar in an amazing way, but it's not like he was particularly entertaining in terms of visually. I'm not sure the visual element adds much, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. Do we really need to bring them back, or can we just enjoy their work for what it is? I know that there's also been murmurings of bringing David Bowie back in hologram form. For me, that's just too soon, to be honest with you. Just too soon.
I think so. My other question is this with a live band? So is it the hologram of Zappa with a live band?
According to what they're said, let me click back on the link. Sorry, I kind of moving on to our next story. It will appear Zappa with the Mothers. And I'm not sure who the Mothers must have been his band. Okay, because they will all be in hologram form.
Okay.
The band
so none of it's live.
None of it's live. It's all a recording. For previous sessions and archived films that have been hidden away. So,
got it.
That's exactly that. Okay, I hate to see what ate it is what it says right here at Irish Sun newspaper. Enormous shark found with head bitten off by an even bigger beast off the coast of Australia. An Australia fisherman was shocked when he pulled up the head weighing a whopping 100 kilograms, but if you're an American yank like I am, that's 226 pounds.
That's a big head.
That's a big head. Wow, that guy had a big head. They are curious of what would have eaten such a massive shark, because it was a great white shark that they found that was dismembered.
Dang.
And great whites are generally speaking the apex predators of these waters.
Absolutely.
But what would rip its head off?
I don't know. What are they saying?
They're actually questioning whether or not the megalodon could be real. But even if the megalodon was real or still around, they generally were not found in waters like that. They were more of a cold water fish.
Yeah, that's pretty warm down there.
Yeah. But he goes on to write on Facebook with a picture capturing the head that he found. And it makes him worry what monster may be lurking in the deep.
There's got to be something.
Yeah, could you imagine pulling up a great whitehead of all things? And there's a picture of it here. Boy, that is a big head. That guy's got a huge head. Pulling up a great whitehead and then seeing it was bitten off. It wasn't ripped. It was bitten off.
Dang.
So something had to have a big enough jaws.
Really? That's a big mouth.
And the shark that was attacked was a 20-foot great white.
Well, beyond the megalodon, which almost certainly does not exist, what else could it possibly be?
I do not know. I mean, there's some big fish out there, and unless whales started getting a hankering for great white. I'm talking blue whales, which they don't eat meat in that capacity. I'm not sure what would have ripped his head off.
Wow. Bizarre. But that is...
Imagine that, though. A 20-foot great white got dismembered by an unknown monster.
Well, all I can think of, assuming that it is undisputed that the head was actually bitten off.
Look at the pictures. It looks like it was bitten off. I mean, there is. I don't know if you have the link. Let me give you that link there, Eric, and you can maybe make up your own mind. But it looks like it was bitten off, like bitten off.
Like Munch.
Yeah, like
Chow
lunch meat
ow.
eaten. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like you are on the menu today.
Wow. Interesting. Well, okay, I'm gonna click.
Take
I had
a clicker.
I'm clicking it up here.
I click it hard.
Okay, so where is my link? There it is.
There's the link right there in the
I
little
see
box.
it.
See it? It's
Wow.
right there. Click on it.
I see it. It's little and boxy.
Mm.
But that head
That's
is
what
not.
she said.
All right. Wow. Okay. Yep. That's a biggie. Yeah, it looks like he got munched.
It was lunch right there. Lunch right there. So I would not be swimming off the coast of Australia.
Well, as we know, everything in or around Australia wants to kill you.
Everything is engineered there to kill you. Florida, for instance, is the Australia of the North. And so I've been there, and things are engineered to kill you there. So I would imagine that it's the same thing down there.
Wow. Well, all I can think of is, barring something truly extraordinary or something we just don't even know about, I guess it's possible it was simply a larger great white. Is that possible?
Maybe. I mean, it very well may be, but great whites aren't known to attack their own. That's one thing I do know from Shark Week. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't know. It's certainly a mystery. It's very strange.
Because he's not the only one that likes Shark Week. I'd dig me some Shark Week. Just saying.
Sure. I don't know. Now that we're on number 46, or whatever, it's not that much, but it's a lot. I think we're getting close to 30. I know we passed 25 of Shark Week. It's kind of like, how much more can they come up with? You know what I mean?
Excuse me, folks.
After you've seen 5 or 10 of them, Shark Weeks, I'm not sure what's left to come up with.
Yeah, I mean, even I'm losing interest in those Shark Week. I used to love it as a youth. Now it's, okay. It's sharks, and it's a week of them. I get it.
It's a lot of sharks spread out over a week.
It's a lot. I mean, unless they come up with like some new shark, like a land shark or something that's running around, that's killing people on the land.
Candygram, ma'am. Candygram.
Shark shows up.
Candygram, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm here to eat you. Wow, and that'd be interesting there. Watching people run away from the sharks. Then that'd be cool. Yeah, right. Blood-curdling screams. What about the children? And that whole thing.
Better to be eaten by a shark than to hear dirty words.
Well, that is true. That is very true. You can have deplorable violence as long as there's no dirty words uttered. Okay, air pollution linked to psychotic episodes in teens. Hey, maybe The Happening had it right, man. Maybe they had it right.
I am not surprised.
Car pollution increases the rate of psychotic episodes and worsens mental illness, and groundbreaking study suggests. Wow. Damn.
I believe it.
There's
so many toxic chemicals in car exhaust.
Well, yeah. But who's down on the tailpipe giving it a good old huff?
Well, it's simply where are those gases concentrated in the city?
I have yet to get down on my hands and knees and grab that tailpipe and say, "Come here, baby. I'm going to breathe you in deep."
You probably should avoid that.
I would definitely avoid that. The first research ever to investigate the link between psychotic experiences and poor air quality found teenagers living in areas of high pollution suffered more than those in cleaner environments. Could it be now when you have more pollutants means that you have more people around you, and maybe they're just feeling penned in? You know what I mean? Just sick of everybody. Who knows? I mean, that would drive me insane to be around 100,000 million people.
Well, you would have to know, how did they isolate it? How did they control?
We get to that.
The chemicals.
The researchers from King's College London used data from 2,332 children born in England and Wales, they found that overall proximity, a third of adolescents reported hearing or seeing something that wasn't there, or feeling paranoid. There we go. On at least one occasion before the age of 12 and 18. Such episodes, while not necessarily serious in themselves, can be a gateway to graver mental conditions, such as the ever-dreaded schizophrenia.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a little indirect, it sounds like.
Yeah,
but
they're grasping at straws, I think, to some extent here. Come on. The kids have always been crazy. That's why they say, damn those crazy kids.
that is true. However, it does make sense that when you have a higher concentration of toxic chemicals from whatever source, water, air, even the ground,
Frank
even the
Zappa
ground,
concerts, yeah.
Frank Zappa concerts, from gases or materials leaking out or leaching out like what? Products that we build with, construction materials, all those kinds of things. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily just about air pollution, but pollution in general is going to cause problems, all kinds of problems. Especially over the long term.
I was looking at the my state's figuring on opioid deaths, and it's in the high 400s. And then they switched over and they compared it to automobile deaths, and that's like in the thousands. Why are we not banning cars then, if it's such an epidemic? Come on, get those damn things off the roads.
There are relative epidemics. How many people drive cars?
Everybody.
Millions and millions.
That's what I'm saying, though. But more people die from car wrecks because more people are doing it, of course. I know what you're saying. But
much
then
lower percentage.
The percentage of people that actually get hooked on opioids after a surgery is I was surprised, very, very low. Not that many people get hooked on opioids.
Well, you mean as a percentage of those who take it?
Yes, for like a surgery, because they're talking about after procedure. Like, like when I had my nasal surgery or what have you, I was on pretty heavy-duty opioids. I didn't have a problem. I can only speak for myself now. I can't speak for everybody. But I didn't have a problem getting off them. In fact, I was happy to get off them because they made me nauseous.
Well, and they cause other issues like constipation.
Horrible, because it slows everything down.
Exactly. That's right. Well, I guess what we're seeing is an epidemic in terms of that net negative result, people ODing. And how did they get there? What is the path that it took to get there? And opioids in general, if you're going to broadly include heroin and poppy-based opium,
sure.
If you're including those as well, because that's why they're called opioids, it's a cyclical thing, and it's come and gone throughout human history. For hundreds of thousands of years, people have been using opioids. What's going on right now is you had much easier access. You had, the allegation is that it was pushed really hard and unethically on the population by the manufacturers of these drugs and through doctors who were essentially bribed in order to push these things and out there. And, that doesn't mean they didn't think they were helping someone. It's just you do have to decide on a case-by-case basis. Is this person better off with these hardcore and addicting painkillers or, something less?
You have to weigh the good versus the bad in that individual case.
Exactly.
And do the most
case
good.
By case.
And the reason why I bring that up is because they're acting like this here is an epidemic. Well, what are you going to do? Ban all cars? Are we going to ban all doctors from giving opioids? Are we going to ban all cars? I don't understand the point of the article other than to say cars are bad, and if we didn't have cars, kids would be better. That's really what it is in a nutshell.
Well, I think where we're heading in terms of medium to long run is we are moving away from from human driven cars. We're going to be taking it's not going to be quick because people will absolutely resist, and there'll be some areas where there will still have to be, for whatever reason, various reasons, a human driver. But for your typical, commuter, for someone who's driving to and from work, for someone who's just, going to the grocery store, that kind of stuff. And perhaps even longer terms, as long as you're out on I would think you're relatively safe. They still haven't figured out all the whys and wherefores of how to make these things work.
I don't know that I would want a car driving for me because my smartphone crashes quite often. I don't want to be in a car that crashes quite often. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you. They are going to have to get this
Brought
figured
to you
out.
by Microsoft Vista.
Exactly. They're going to have to get this thing figured out. If they do, assuming they do figure it out, and of course nothing is ever, ever, ever perfect. We have plane crashes. Look at the two we just had with the the 7, the one that was grounded. That was caused by software issues. So
Yep.
I mean, computer problems seem to be endemic. Anyway, the point is, I believe we are heading toward a future where there will be less and less human driving. In theory, that will make us safer and safer.
I knew an auto engineer, and we were talking back and forth, and we were talking about the electric car and what killed that. And he says, you know what? These fossil fuel engines have been obsolete for 50 years. We are so far advanced, if we really wanted to, in electrical engines, we could easily set up every car to be electric. But there's the money, the big oil. That's what stops that from happening.
And the infrastructure. But it's gradually changing. I know people with electric cars, and I certainly know plenty of people now have hybrids. So, I mean, gradually, slowly but surely, the infrastructure is coming into place. I do see more and more electric hookups for cars. I see them in Walmart parking lots, and various places, gas stations and whatnot. You do see them more and more, and that will continue, obviously, as more and more people buy the cars.
Sure.
And that'll happen along with the self-driving cars. They will switch over to electric as well, of course. That's all part of this process. So, I mean, if you're looking at it, the big picture, yes, we will change how we get around, and transportation, personal transportation will change. So will that, solve the quote unquote epidemic? Well, it'll mitigate it quite a bit, I think.
Well, this engineer that I spoke with, but under the guise of anonymity back then, said, it'd be really easy. All you'd have to do is put a solar panel on the hood. That's all you would have to do, and have more than one battery, and you would never have to stop to charge because it's always charging from the sun.
I think there have been a lot of issues with solar panels. At first, they weren't very efficient. They're very expensive relative to other fuels. But I think it's obviously that is ultimately our way forward, because once you have the material in place, once you have the panels in place, and as long as they're efficient, then basically it's all free.
Yeah, you only cry once and you're buying it. After that, you're good to go. You only buy it once, and maybe change it out if they do die here and there. But ultimately, I see that changing. But then to have this study saying cars are bad and no one should live in urban environments because it's making people crazy, I think that's a little bit of sky is falling BS, to be honest with you. I don't think it's as bad as this particular study is putting out there. Dr. Cole would be a good one to talk to about that.
Well, if you look at automotive safety, and if you look at it by percentage, so let's say the percentage of fatalities per X number of miles, right?
Yeah.
It has improved notably. Automobile safety has improved very notably over time, over the decades.
Sure.
And by percentage, fewer deaths now, even though we drive a lot faster.
We do.
The speed limits have gone up steadily over the last, 30 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it's not unusual, even in Ohio, places where it's not thought of as, big open highways and wide open spaces. I mean, I don't think you see 80 miles an hour in Ohio, but you do see 75.
Oh, sure.
see 80 lots of places throughout the country now.
Yeah, that is true. I've been in a few states where they didn't have a speed limit. It's prudent speed.
Right.
Whatever you could safely drive for the conditions.
Like the Autobahn in
Exactly,
Germany.
yes. And Montana, I do believe, or Wyoming, one of the two has that as well. So we got to get out of here, though. We're going to run the break. We come back. We're going to cover your America's Most Haunted Headlines. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey. Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com. Only you can prevent wildfires.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
I got a rather serious problem over here.
All right, what are we looking at?
Cranky mother-in-law asleep on the couch in the man cave.
Dear God.
It gets worse.
That's impossible.
She's passed out on the remote.
I stand corrected.
What do I do?
Okay, I want you to grab a Torrin Big Red hydraulic bottle jack.
Okay.
Now you wedge that bad boy in under your mother-in-law and crank her up skyward.
It's working. And got the remote.
Great. Now grab that Torrin Big Red 2-ton folding shop crane and put that woman on wheels.
And away we go.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And it is time to fire up the yay old Twitter and follow along as we go through America's Most Headlines. And make sure you stop by America's Most Haunted. That's only the coolest, most amazing website on the internet. There you can read all of the articles written by our very own Eric Olson that go along with the show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joel. Yes. So we are at twitter.com/AM Haunted, and you can check it out whether you belong to Twitter or not. You can see the pictures and follow the links. And we're putting new stuff up all the time, almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, under normal conditions, every day. Every once in a while, we take a bit of a break. And so on and so forth. But we are back in the groove right now, my friends. All right. So, Joel,
yes.
What are your thoughts on black-eyed kids? A, do you think that they're a real phenomena? And then B, if so, what are your thoughts on what they might be?
Well, okay, here's where I kind of have a hard time with black-eyed kids. Is we live in the era of cell phones with cameras. If they're at your door for like 20 minutes going, let us in, we won't hurt you, let us use the phone. Take a frickin' picture. Prove it. Prove
Exactly.
They're real. I believe people believe they see them, but do I think that maybe they're demons, thought forms, or aliens? Well, I don't know. I would have to lean, if I was pressed, I'd have to lean more towards the alien aspect because they have, a lot of people that have allegedly seen them say they have alien-type features. They're kind of pale, their eyes are kind of bigger. They would be more, I would think, fall into the alien category. How about you, Eric?
Well, I interviewed Brian Bethel.
Oh, sure, the granddaddy of it all.
the granddaddy. And, he's a pretty serious guy. He's a lifelong journalist.
Texas guy, yeah.
Texas newspaper man. Not someone who you would think would be prone to exaggeration. And when he tells that story, boy, does it sound real. And it sounds very frightening, I must say. So, I mean, based on him and then some of the other stories, I'm somewhat inclined to think something's going on. Something has to be real. But like you and like we've talked about, for example, with lots of alleged paranormal phenomena, why aren't there pictures with everyone running around with cell phones? So I agree with that. So I'm kind of on the fence. Mm-hmm. When you talk to some people and you say just that, what we just said about why aren't there pictures? Well, because that's part of what's going on. You can't take pictures of them.
Why? They photo shy? Come on. But see now, Eric, some people talk about them being at their door for like 20, 30 minutes standing there.
I know. Knock, knock, knock.
Yeah, right. Get a damn camera, or open the door and hit him in the head with a ball bat and drag him in. Get a corpse.
There would seem to be something that could be done. Yeah. I agree. Anyway, interesting article by our good friend, very prolific. Oh my goodness, this guy writes more articles and writes more books than the rest of the world combined, I think. Nick Redfern.
Oh, yeah.
So he's written an article on Mysterious Universe. That's his outlet for articles versus books. And he's kind of summarizing another book, one that he didn't write, I should say. Of course, obviously he did read it, by David Weatherly, and who's considered kind of now the expert on black-eyed kids or black-eyed children, because Brian just had the experience. It's not like he's going around following up on it since then. He just had what happened to him, and I think he has returned back to his main field of endeavor, which is being a journalist. So anyway, it's an interesting article. It's positing the various theories of what they might be. I don't know if they address the camera issue, but in this one. But anyway, it's saying, the three main theories, assuming that there is something there that is real, or some sort of demonic entity, possibly even a thought form. Now, the thought form part, to me, is interesting, because that could be almost like a hologram, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's there but not really there.
It's made by your own mind kind of thing.
Created by and somehow manifested into some version of materiality, but not all the way, perhaps. And maybe that's difficult to photograph or doesn't show up on a picture. I don't know. I'm just speculating. And then, of course, the third is, as you mentioned, are aliens. It's possibly there,
or it could be complete, or
it
could be complete bull spit. Like absolutely nothing to it. These people are nuts, and maybe the people that have seen them are on some pretty good drugs. And there's also that.
All of those options.
Occam's razor, man. The most simplest question is often the one that's right.
Though it's all there on the table.
You know what I mean? I mean, because here's the deal. Here's the deal, though. Fantastic claims require fantastic evidence.
I agree.
And there's none to be had. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist, but I'm saying
there's no evidence.
There's no evidence. There's none. So
there's only anecdotes.
That's it. Anecdotal evidence is someone that hears a knock on the door. They go there and they say, "Can we use your phone? Or can we get a ride? Or whatever." And and you know what? Like I said, flash a picture. Say, "Hey, I'll let you in if you say cheese for me first."
Absolutely. I agree with you. I like so many things, so many topics within this field, I'm torn because there are aspects that sound plausible. There are aspects that feel intuitively correct, but why no evidence?
Why is it never rural areas, though? Like hillbilly gun-toting areas that have the black-eyed kids show up?
I don't know. I haven't noticed.
I have.
What the pattern is.
Yeah, I kind of,
where
years
they show.
ago when it first cropped up, I was kind of look at the pattern of where it's most likely happening. I mean, it is in rural areas, but it's like a gas station in the middle of the night kind of thing. But why they never, rap on the door of a proud NRA member and, and eat a little lead? I'm just saying.
I cannot answer your question.
Okay, Eric, I know. I'm beating a
Perfectly
dead horse.
reasonable.
I'm beating a dead horse. I know. I'm
It's
drawing
perfectly
flies.
reasonable.
Okay, let's move.
All right, we will move along. Did you know that Creepshow is being turned into an anthology? Of course, it was an anthology.
Yes.
TV series.
Really?
On Shudder. Have you ever belonged to Shudder,
the
streaming service?
No, I have never belonged to it, and I might now that Netflix is raising its rates, which is really pissing me off for nothing. They're not giving us any really good content anymore. But I have not. Have you ever checked out Shudder?
I did a free brief trial. I think we did. Did we interview someone from there, or was that other one? No, I think it was the other service. It was
I know
the other horror service.
Sure.
What is that one called? Oh my goodness, I'll have to go look it up. Anyway, no, I have not paid for it. I did do a brief free trial. The problem for me with Shudder is they tend to emphasize esoteric and extreme horror, and I'm not real interested in extreme horror.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. The other people that have watched Shudder and fans of Shudder, about as extreme as I like to get is Last House on the Left. I mean, that's extreme for this guy, even Wes Craven classic. But I don't like to watch horror flicks just for gore's sake.
No, and right, exactly. Torture porn, no.
Yeah, just watched one with Nick Cage in it, and it was called Mandy, right?
Oh, yes, that's it, right. I've been hearing a lot about it.
That was a weird movie. That was a weird movie. It was made by someone clearly that maybe was an LSD trip or something, because it was an odd film. Odd film.
I've heard it was hallucinogenic.
It's very. I had a hard time following it. I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. This just does not make any sense at all. But then I realized, oh, wait, if you're under the influence of something, it would probably, all the pieces would probably fall together. But Nick Cage, of course, does his classic Nick Cage acting.
Unhinged.
Yep. He has to scream. I think there's a clause in the contract that says you must babble and scream incoherently in every movie for no less than 3 minutes.
Now, is that consecutive or composite?
I think it's you got to have the scream fest with him going, you know what I'm talking about.
Of course I do.
Yeah.
Classic K.
Yeah, I think that is actually in his contract. I think he has to come unhinged at least one time. Unless it's National Treasure, and then they let John Voight do that.
Yeah, right. He's a more subdued character in that one. I love those National Treasure movies, though.
That's one of those movies that if you flip to it, you're stuck.
I agree.
It could be a middle of a Saturday afternoon, and you have every intention of getting up to do some housework or whatever, the honey-do list. But if you find that on TBS or TNT, you're done. You're stuck for the next 2 hours.
And I like the second one, too, even though it's even more implausible than the first one.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's still fun, Anyway, back to Creepshow. So it's going to be a TV series and some pretty high-profile people, including Adrienne Barbeau, who was in the original Creepshow film.
That's a she, right? Yeah, that's a female actor. She's got to be pretty aged by now.
Well, she's not young.
I was going to say, because I'm looking at her GIF right now, and I remember her, and she was probably back then in her late 30s, early 40s. So, yeah. Dragging her out of the senior home.
Let's find out how old she is.
I'm going to guess 71.
73.
Oh, I was close.
I'll tell you what, though. She looks pretty good.
Really? Wow.
Really?
So like if in a different world, you might be like, hey, baby.
Well, no, because she's 73.
Wait,
But
come on, Eric. You can't be ageist like that. Hot's hot.
I am totally ageist like that. But for 73, she looks very nice. No problem.
You know who is still looking good? And I know we're way off topic here, but Linda Carter is still looking smoking hot.
I mean, some of these women, it's one of the things that we've really, really seen change over the last few decades. It's happened with the baby boomers. It's one of the positives of the baby boomers. And I'm a baby boomer. I'm at the tail end, but I am one. And this generation has forced the world to look at women as, sexy and still hot, much older than ever before in the history of mankind.
That's true, because generally I'd expect a birthday card with $5 in it from her rather than be a girlfriend, like grandma.
Exactly. So, but you're getting some of these models, some of these actresses as they age.
But some of them not so much. I saw a movie with Melanie Griffith looked like a train wreck the other day in a movie. Oh, my God. I'm thinking, poor Melanie, what happened to you?
Too much work.
Yeah.
That's the other issue, is either you have very subtle, successful work, which really can enhance, or you look like hell. It's really obvious when it's too much and they look ridiculous.
She looked like a football with lips.
Yeah, it's too bad. I agree. I have seen her recently, and she did not look good.
Oh, no, bad looking. All right, let's move along.
All right, so that's coming to Shudder. Shudder, that will be the first original content, at least of any serious kind, to appear on Shudder. Yet another streamer. Man, are there a lot of them out there. All right, I love this image. It is a, what do you call that device that is holding the head?
A
clamp?
A cranium clamp, maybe? Is that what they used to call that? Yeah.
I like a cranium clamp,
Yeah.
which I guess you would use maybe for brain surgery or something.
Sure, hold them still while you rip into their head. Yeah,
exactly. But we have a Frankenstein-like figure head is being held in the clamps, and it is pretty.
Oh, yeah. That is gruesome.
It is extreme. I am telling you, but super cool too. So what they're doing here, clearly, and this is the caption, he's being recalibrated. So, in order to see this fine image, you must go to twitter.com.
Visit the Twitter.
/AM Hunt.
That's exactly correct, sir.
All right. Everyone's favorite from American Horror Story, Evan Peters, who's, I think, the only one who's been on every single season.
I think he has been, and he, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can watch it again, American Horror Story. It's just gone too far afield for me. It's just weird.
He will not be on season 9.
Oh, well, that's a loss because he was a strong actor.
Very strong. I mean, think of all the different characters he's playing. He's often been the lead,
Yeah.
He's carried it. So anyway, and boy, did Lily, my younger daughter, did she have a crush on him for a while.
Wow. Huh.
Serious crush.
But he always plays these strange characters.
True, but she knows that he's not like that in the real world.
Well, I'm sure he's not, and I'm sure he's a very, very nice person.
That's what he's saying. That's what this article says of why he said, look, I'm a fun guy. I like to laugh and be silly and joke around and think about fun things and do different things and run around. And man, this show, he said, being on this show, it just kills me.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It's so dark and evil.
Yeah, he was, I forget the name on X-Men, their answer to Flash.
Right.
He was that guy, and he played that part. I was hoping they were going to do more with that character in the future, but it seems like the X-Men franchise is kind of falling on space.
Well, I am guessing
Hugh left. That's what happened.
Part of all this is that he's probably got a movie that he's going to be in.
Oh, yeah.
That's
I
my
sure hope
guess.
so. I sure hope so. He is a great actor.
He really is. I mean, the versatility is amazing. Just the accents, the variety of accents alone.
Sure.
It's really been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I only do accents when I get phone calls for people I don't know, and I'll mess with them a little bit, like telemarketers. I like to be an Asian American man working at a restaurant.
All right, well, give us an example.
Oh, you come pick up. We call cops. You don't come pick up. We call cops. Stuff like that.
Stuff like that, yeah. You're dropping some science on them.
That's right. You come back. You order. You don't come pick up. You don't come pick up. We call cops. They don't know what to say. They hang up abruptly.
You know, all you got to do is pick up the phone and not say anything, and
I've gotten pretty nasty in my younger days, though. I did some things I'm not proud of, but man, it was fun.
It is, because do they deserve it?
They do deserve it,
especially if you're on the do not call list, which I am, and we get called. I get called all day long.
They still have that thing around. See now. Thank God for caller ID. And I use an app called True Caller, and they should be sponsoring us, but they're not. That allows you to block calls, spam, and everything else. You never get them.
I need to do that because I do hear from the same numbers over and over again. All right, so moving along, and I love this. Do you see the picture? You got the composite there of. It's not even all, but there are 15 different characters that he has played in 8 seasons.
Damn! Now that is some chops. The only one that maybe could compare to that is, oh boy, and Clarissa loves the guy. His name is escaping me from Glass. From Split. Who was that actor's name? He was British.
James McAvoy.
Exactly. There we go. There you have it. And he displayed some acting chops in that movie, doing 23 different and diverse characters in sometimes seconds.
It was amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen Glass yet, but he certainly did that in Split, which was the one in the second of the.
I did see Glass, by the way, and
I think you said you kind of liked it.
Yeah,
right?
It's a wait for a Blu-ray kind of movie. It's a wait around. Yeah.
Okay,
and free is better. You can get it for free.
Free is all
exactly. All right, moving along.
Moving along. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. There's always interest in really creepy horror dolls.
Sure, I live in a creepy house of dolls, so yeah.
Dolls are inherently creepy, but this is taking them to way higher levels of creepiness. And I have never seen so many creepy dolls in a single article. If you click over, there's got to be 20 of them. Each one's more horrifying than the one before.
These dolls have nothing on my daughter's Barbies. She has car accident Barbie. She has domestic violence Barbie. Not that that's funny. She has bad choices Barbie. It all depends on what she brings down because she likes to put makeup on them. But when they're done, they look like they're victims of a gruesome. She also has Special Olympics Barbie, where the dog has ripped off all of its limbs, but yet it still likes to ski. And so she brings down these menagerie of disabled and beaten almost to death Barbies.
How about Back Alley Barbie?
Oh yeah, she's there too. She's the one that got addicted early on to the little crack rock. And I see her come out of that bedroom once in a while. She's not looking good. Days are not looking good for her.
All right. Now, I generally try to avoid specifically Halloween things out of season because we know the season is long and dense. But once in a while, we got to drop something in there because, we're all things Halloween-y and Amazemo and so on and so forth. So I love this image. It is a carved pumpkin, not a jack-o'-lantern, but there is a window carved, and then bars are made from toothpicks. And there are two skeleton prisoners inside this pumpkin jail. And I just love it. And these guys are doing hard time.
Oh, my gosh.
Isn't that a great image?
Love it. That, you can never get too early with Halloween.
Well, maybe a little early. Actually, we're late because it's not the halfway point yet. Halfway point is end of April.
So is that when you start your Halloween countdown? Is end of April?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, you poor man.
No.
You're a man in waiting.
I just know that that's the halfway point because lots of people post, it's the halfway point, halfway to Halloween.
My problem though with Halloween is I love Halloween, but what follows it is winter. So I'm kind of one of them to where it's like, yeah, it can hold on a little while before it shows up.
I got to tell you, to be honest, I actually like the early part of the Halloween season because the weather is still
sure open. You're absolutely correct, and you actually get
my
to Halloween.
Favorite time. So like late September, early October, that's my favorite Halloween time, even though it's very early because like you say, by October 31st in the northern climes, I'm in northeastern Ohio, you're in northern Minnesota, it is usually quite chilly.
Oh, yeah. I'm talking like having to wear your winter jacket over your costume chilly.
Yes,
so
and that
sucks.
takes a lot of the fun out of it.
It does. It's horrible. Horrible, I tell you. Horrible.
And part of it, too, for me is just, memories of childhood. And I grew up in Southern California, so when we were out trick-or-treating on October 31st, it was usually quite warm.
And it was hardcore trick-or-treating, I bet. Hardcore.
Very hardcore.
You even had the pillowcases, I'm sure of it.
Pillowcases, jamming potatoes into exhaust pipes. We did it all. We were out till...
You're a rebel.
Now they got the ridiculous, our city will deign to have trick-or-treating between the hours of 5 and 7.
Right?
Blow it out your ass! We're going to trick-or-treat until we feel like going home.
In my state, we have the Halloween capital of the world, Anoka. And they go crazy for the Halloween. Crazy.
Well, I hope they trick-or-treat late as well.
I think it starts like 3 days before Halloween.
It never stops.
It's the party that never stops. Come on.
I like that. That I like. Well, there's an actual Halloween town, which is where they shot those out.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The outside shots from the films or whatever you call them, TV specials. Most of it was shot. Of course, the interiors, of course, and everything were in a studio. But the town, anytime you see the actual town outdoor shots, that town exists, and it's up in Oregon, and they've turned that connection into a huge. They do a big festival every year now, and they have someone from the movie, shows up.
Yeah, I gotta have the guy that did the stunts or something, some low-level actor.
Because you're not getting Debbie Reynolds.
No, not happening. Isn't she dead?
She is dead.
Oh, that's why. Well, maybe it is Halloween. You might get a resurrection.
Who knows, baby? Yeah, remember she died days after her daughter?
That's right. I forgot about that. I had forgotten about that. That is very sad, but that's why we have Ouija boards.
Yes. All right. Another Halloween-ish, though not necessarily. And it was just, again, the visuals. Look at this next thing. I love these decorations. So what you're seeing is an interior shot. You're seeing a fireplace, and you're seeing bats flying out of the fireplace into the room.
And you have a real bat at your house.
Oh, we do. Oh, I find that so annoying. We got dead bats up in the attic.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm not touching them, man.
We have pigeon problems where I live, so, we
have dead bats. And, I mean,
and
that's
cocky
a hazmat.
pigeons.
Cocky pigeons, yes. And wrestlers.
Yes.
Cocky wrestlers.
Oh, man, it's already up here at the top of the hour. We got to get out of here.
Lord, man. Okay.
Yeah, we got to get out of here. We come back. We're going to be talking about a really cool book that's out there. And then, of course, the author and tarot. And it's going to be a good time. You're not going to want to miss this. Be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me,
Eric Olson.
Eric, we have a great guest on tonight. And I love it when you can get guests on that you've actually connected with one-on-one in the real world. That does not happen enough, you know? We get these guests on, which they're wonderful, don't get me wrong, that you never get to meet. You only get to hear the voice. But you, Eric, got to connect one-on-one with our guests tonight, and so that's always a treat.
Yes, we ran into each other at the original, now it's a new location, the Buckland Witchcraft Museum. Of course, we just had Stephen on a couple weeks ago, and that was all kinds of fun, always is, talking about their new greatly expanded location. So anyway, met Matt there at the Buckland back around Halloween time, I think it was. And we're just finally getting it together now. We have all kinds of scheduling stuff that comes and things come and go. But we are delighted to have Matt on the program. Why is he here? He's here to talk about Rust Belt Arcana, tarot, and natural history in the exurban wilds. A young bear, the Fool, is cast off from its mother in the spring to wander a fragmented suburban forest, to be harried by dogs and traffic, chased through golf courses and farms. An ocean-going trout climbs industrial sewage-tainted rivers in the Midwest. The river is both sick and healthy. The trout the magician, is both wild and made. People have used tarot cards for over 500 years to reveal hidden information about their lives, their psyches, and their futures. Some people believe tarot cards may be a map of Jung's collective subconscious. Others suggest the tarot conveys occult, esoteric knowledge. Each person projects their own experiences, beliefs, fears, and desires on the cards. Interestingly, and I actually, believe it or not, haven't known that much about it, so I'm going to be learning a lot about tarot throughout the program. In a traditional tarot deck, there are 78 cards, 56 cards resembling your standard playing card deck, and 22 special cards that are outside of the numbered and suited sequence. These 22 cards are known as the major arcana. Each of the cards has accrued a set of meanings or associations over time. And what's so fascinating about the essays in the Rust Belt Arcana, again, the whole title, Tarot and Natural History in the Exurban Wilds, is Matt maps those divinatory associations and signifiers in the cards to the flora and fauna of the Rust Belt. These are stories of abundance and loss and the persistence of remnant wilderness in the industrial Midwest. Exploring this natural history helps us to find our place in the landscape, to know our home and ourselves. Who is Matt Stansberry? He's a writer focused on the intersection of natural history and myth. Matt, who was born right near me here in Akron, Ohio, graduated from Kent State, where I also went for a while, spent 6 years in Oregon writing about wild trout and salmon and advocating for sustainable fisheries management. He currently lives in the Piedmont of North Carolina with his wife and 3 sons. His first book, and this is it, Rust Belt Arcana, Tarot, and Natural History in the Exurban Wilds, was listed as one of the Nature Conservancy's favorite books of 2018 and was a recommended reading from the Audubon magazine's field editor and the Cleveland Museum of Natural History. Since completing the book, Matt has been exploring traditional witchcraft, animism, and chaos magic as a lens for nature writing. Boy, we want to talk about that too. Welcome to the program, Matt Stansberry.
Thanks, Eric. I got to get you to all my readings. You do it so much better than I do. You sound great.
Oh, thanks.
You sound great.
Well, you provided a nice bio, and the book is so interesting and lyrical. That's what amazed me. What a great writer you are. It's such original thought. I mean, it's really interesting. You know, normally we're not talking about nature books, and I think in an email or something you were mentioning that, you know, I think it was your tweet, that the great majority of the actual writing in the book is pretty much pertaining to nature, but it's how you do it, and it ends up becoming, I think, very mystical. And if you tie that into some of these things that you've been working on since the book came out, I mean, it's kind of a whole different world. How did all of this come about, the concept for this in the first place? Because it is truly unique.
Yeah, it was just a stroke of luck, to be totally honest. I was writing for Belt Publishing out of Cleveland for a long time as their nature columnist, and was writing kind of adult stuff with swear words and bug sex and filthy seagulls stealing French fries. I was kind of like trying to write kind of like the realist version of nature writing.
Bug sex.
And banded seagulls.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like all the like horrible, beautiful realities right there. And our publisher said, we were trying to do a book, and she said, nobody's going to buy just a book of random essays. You need a theme, you need the hook. And I stumbled into tarot, and that was just a huge door opening into a lot of changes in my life. I mean, gosh.
Are you a tarot practitioner?
Amateur, I'll put it that way.
Sure.
We produced a 78-card deck at the same time as we finished the book, so there's actually physical decks available that we
very cool.
We used. So that was super fun. And so David Wilson's my collaborator. He did hand painted all the images, and we went and did tarot readings. When we first launched the book, I was on Twitter doing as many free tarot readings as I could. Just advertising was highly amateur.
Yeah.
And we came up with our own spread, because that seems to be the tradition. When somebody releases a new tarot book, they usually come up with their own spread, which is kind of a pattern on how to lay out the cards and what they mean, and it was super fun, and it's kind of opened doors into a lot of areas I didn't expect to be going at this point in my life, coming up as like a hook and bullet fishing writer.
Yeah, I know a little bit about tarot. I was trained on how to read tarot, and I kind of do it more as a parlor trick more than anything else. Some people wanted serious readings, and I'm the wrong guy to go to for a serious reading. But because I enjoy to have a little fun with it, because it's some people take it so seriously, and they should. Don't get me wrong; it is a very serious thing, and it is a religion almost onto itself. Which and of course the old tarot Rider-Waite cards. That's what most of us begin on. And it sounds like you kind of went away from that and made your own, and I find that super cool.
Yeah, it was it was very fun. I Rider-Waite was definitely my gateway, and I think a lot of folks will find that their kind of gateway deck. And as I was writing the book, I just kind of got obsessed. So I was getting other decks like the Crowley. Aleister Crowley has the Thoth deck, which is gorgeous and really hard to read. And then Mother Peace is this very interesting deck that was probably a couple decades old with round cards.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of them, and the Thoth deck's been great. The Handel deck. So I've gone and gotten kind of obsessed and collected a lot of decks, and they all have a different tone.
What hooks you about tarot? What interests you about it?
Sure. I mean, so for me, it's about story, and when you're, the cards that we produce aren't visually as rich as a lot of the tarot, because they're just, there's all this symbolism, and we try to kind of embed it in the choice of the animals and plants we included in what they're doing. But there's just in each card, there's just a ton of symbols, like the number of things in a card and the directions, where someone's looking, what's their expression, what are they doing. I mean, especially in the Rider-Waite deck, which is Pamela Coleman Smith's, artwork. It's every image is so expressive and tells a story, and then you start to chain those images together, and you've got a plot. And as a lazy writer, I will tell you that it's very nice to have randomness generating a plot for you.
Sure. Yeah, like when I started learning, I used to do the, like the Celtic cross reading, stuff like that. The generals, you kind of get into it, and like you said, you develop your own style, and different cards can mean different things to different people.
Oh, absolutely.
So like the death card, for instance, does not always mean death. It could mean a death of a situation. You're coming to the end of a chapter in your life and something new is going to begin. But when I used to do a lot of readings, boy, that death card, they did not like to see that, even if it was paired with something positive, after the death.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody wants to look at it.
No, that and the Tower were the two that were the most feared cards. The Tower, of course, for anyone that's into tarot or not, it's one of the more misunderstood tarot cards because it's shifting sand, it's uncertainty in your situation, that whole thing, and yeah. So I find tarot to be really fascinating for a lot of reasons, but also the psychological reasons too. Watching these people as the cards are being flipped, and they're hinging on every flip. It's just so strange.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the things that I've been thinking about when I look at tarot, and I've been reading a bunch of Jungian analysts lately, and that's one of the things that I've noticed about myself. One of the things I say is that we just don't really even understand ourselves very well. We don't understand our motivations or why we decide to do things, and I feel like that tarot structure gives you a way of maybe examining your own behaviors and choices. In a way that you wouldn't otherwise do, which is really fun. To see, or to make fun might be the wrong word.
Well, it all depends. I mean, you can have a great reading one time and then absolutely horrible. I mean, again, like you said, it's all chance. It's all random chance.
Yeah.
Hey guys, as someone who is not nearly as versed in tarot as the two of you, and I'm sure there's other people out there who are as ignorant as I, why don't you, beyond the really brief summary that I read in the intro, why don't you just explain how does it work? What are the variables? It sounds like you two guys have at least a fair amount of experience, and just let us know in terms of background how this works, and why then can kind of parlay that into why does it make sense then as a lens through which to view the natural world.
Sure, that's a great question for Matt, because he was able to parlay that into the natural world, and which is really ambitious and cool at the same time. I'd love to hear his thoughts on that.
Yeah, great. So do you want to start from the beginning of kind of what the structure of tarot and how it works from the mechanic standpoint?
Yes, please.
Sure. So you have this deck of 78 cards, and I'm sure everyone has different kind of variants on this, but essentially the idea is you can read for yourself or you can read for a querent, which is just someone who would like to read the cards for them. And I think there's as many approaches on how to do that as there are people who are reading cards, right? So there's folks who have kind of a very strict set of ritual that they perform. For me, it was basically just kind of centering yourself and trying to quiet your mind a little bit before you started. Mm-hmm. And what we would then do is you deal out a spread, and it can be as simple as a single card. I mean, and that's how I actually started writing the book, was just doing a card a day. And then, it gets increasingly elaborate from there. So you can go to the 3-card spread, which is really common, kind of a past, present situation, future outcome. So it's, kind of that's an easy one to do quickly and kind of get a sense of it. And then it gets a little, increasingly more complex, down to something like the Celtic Cross, which is, like a dozen cards out with overlapping meanings. And then there's a lot of individualized, very specialized spreads. There's books that have, just hundreds of spreads in them. And the idea is each position refers to something that the card is telling you at that point. Mm-hmm. So you're interpreting the position and what the card says. So, and then some folks use the cards being reversed. So I kind of go back and forth on that. You should probably be consistent when you're doing readings, but essentially a reverse can mean either the opposite or slightly less dramatic version of the main meaning. And so I mostly was doing a lot of reading for myself and reading books about self-reads, and because I didn't have a lot of people to practice on. The handful of times I did, it was a little too disturbing sometimes for folks, and myself included. So I was doing a lot of self-reads as I wrote the book, and then was doing more kind of remote online reads for folks afterwards. Mm-hmm. And how to translate it into kind of writing with the natural world. The idea kind of popped in fully formed, just because each card, I think we talked about a couple of them at the beginning, like the Fool or the High Priestess. Those are kind of in the front of the book. Those are they have these associations and attributes. So the High Priestess is a card that's very stark, and there's black and there's white, and it's associated with water and cold and power, female power, and it's a beautiful card. And what we did on that particular chapter in that image was the snowy owl, which is this Arctic owl that comes down from the Arctic Circle into Cleveland. I mean, they fly all the way to Baltimore. They're in the winter when they're getting out of the Arctic, and a lot of the aspects of the owl just matched the attributes of the card. And we got out a spreadsheet, as kind of unromantic as that is. We were matching up species attributes with card attributes at that point, and then the essays kind of flowed on from there.
Man, that sounds very creative and really hard to pull off, to tie that into the natural world. And that is really hats off to you, because you're able to merge those two things that really shouldn't exist together, tarot and nature, directly like that, and able to tell a tale.
It was a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. I tell you, I've been chasing that dragon, trying to get the next idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, when you're reading, when you started reading, I would imagine you did like most of us, you start reading on family members. And that's kind of a dangerous thing, especially if the reading is kind of not so great. Then you feel bad. Oh, Mom, don't worry. You're not going to die tomorrow. Oh, these cards, that whole thing,
Yes, and I will say we had a handful of those, and I'm not going to try to tell you I'm psychic, but I have come to believe in a certain amount of the divination, prophecy in the cards, or just in the sense of randomness.
Sure.
And the things that I've seen, we did have a couple of scary moments with family members where something really bad happened that was in the cards, and things like that are just, like you said, reading on family members is not my preferred thing. We haven't done it much since.
I always get, at least one time in my readings, a suit of swords somewhere.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It's always conflict. There's always something going on. And I'm not really into too much conflict, but I always do. And I do not know why, but that's, and sometimes that's for good. Sometimes that means you're fighting for the right reasons, and then sometimes conflict finds you, and the cards will sometimes bear that out.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know, there's 4 suits, like we were saying on the playing card. So the pips, which are kind of the standard 1 through 10s, and then the court cards, they have suits. So the suit of swords is really a card of conflict, and generally means bad things. And then the other suits are wands, which are really kind of about action and intelligence. Yeah. And then you've got the cups, which are water and emotion and
money. Sometimes,
yes,
and
pentacles, which are the kind of the material goods, money, and yeah.
If you can get cups of pentacles, you're doing all right. Especially if the cups aren't upside down.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that means you're losing money.
Yeah.
But I think it's fascinating, that you took an interest in tarot, and it takes a lot to memorize those suits, though. That's what I was learning. That was the most daunting thing, was not to have to flip through the book while I was doing a reading. Because nothing screams amateur like getting the book out and flipping through it.
Yeah, and I had to do that a lot in the beginning. I mean, that was, and it's not a lot of fun to sit there and like flip through a book and try to come up with something like that. But I do, when I've read dozens and dozens of tarot books in the research leading up to this book, and a lot of them say, don't feel bad. Use the book.
Yeah.
Use your intuition. Interpret.
That's what I found out works. Is what does that card mean to you as the reader? Yeah, not necessarily what the book is saying, but what does that mean to you, your intuition? What's it telling you? And that's a pretty tough skill on its own, to trust your own intuition when you're doing a reading.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's kind of exciting, and
it is. It is definitely can be exciting. Now, you took up tarot. Were you a believer beforehand, or did you just what got you into it?
Sheer crass commercial interest. It was, I needed an angle for a book. I grew up writing for hunting and fishing magazines, and that was my interest. And just as I kind of tried to embody what I was writing about, it took over, and things. I think you'll find any of your listeners who start playing with the tarot and experimenting with it, they find things that are just patterns and aspects of the world that respond to you differently. And that's what happened to me. And I've kind of just completely gone down a different direction of my life since then. So the synchronicities start to happen. So more when you have tarot cards in your hand.
But that and then you could track it back to that reading you did a week ago. Go, wait a minute. Yeah. If you record it and then you kind of fast forward a week, and then that kind of starts, and that's when it gets weird, though, is when they start matching up to your life. That's that bridge between skepticism and believing, is seeing it play out in front of you.
Yes.
So Matt, you have freely admitted that your initial interest in tarot came from, hey, I want to do a book, and I have these essays on nature, and I am thoughtful regarding nature, and I have profound thoughts, but in order for anyone to care, I have to at least for this publisher to care, I have to find a way to blend it with tarot. So how did that unfold? Because it feels very organic in the book. It doesn't feel like some weird mashup. It feels like a genius, organic move. So how did you move from the intellectual concept into this much deeper layer that you strike through your writing?
That's a great question, and I want to try to answer it well. I guess it was just embodying the cards. It took a long time. I will say I probably wrote for a year with the book and with the cards and just starting and threw out the first year's worth of stuff and banged it all out in the second year in a much more in a different perspective and place. So that was one part of it, I think. So I was just living with the cards, living with the concepts and the essays. And as I got more interested in tarot, I changed. So that was, I think, part of it. Just kind of trying to learn and experience things differently. I just saw things differently as I was writing it. And,
sure.
But it changed me. The experience definitely changed me.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty cool though. You walked into it, not really being a tarot guy, and then the experience takes you by the hand.
Yeah.
Why don't you walk us through one of the characters, one of the animals or plants for that matter that you chose to then associate with a tarot entity, and tell us how that unfolded.
Sure, absolutely. So, one of my favorites is the magician, and that's it was it's kind of left vague to who the magician is in this essay, but it's about steelhead trout, and for folks in the upper Midwest, they fish a lot for these steelhead trout, which run up the rivers for the Great Lakes. They're not supposed to be here. They're a West Coast fish that got dumped into the lakes in the 70s and can kind of continue to get stocked, and they certainly aren't supposed to be in the Cuyahoga River, which is, still to this day fairly polluted, poor quality water. I mean, it's not pristine. It's a lot of urban runoff and sewage, and it's still very much better than it was in the 70s. But with the degraded riverine habitat, it's just not as clear and cold as it should be for steelhead. But they run up it anyway, and there's a lot of them. And the concept of the magician is someone who's playing a trick. And the Cuyahoga River is absolutely a trickster. And the steelhead and the angler. Excuse me. And the idea behind it is that you're kind of blending a lie with the truth, that you were, fake it till you make it. And the steelhead run up the river but they should never be in. And the angler is there with something, fake and a wand in his hand, and he's waving it around. And there shouldn't be a steelhead there. There shouldn't be a steelhead angler there, but there they are. They're connected on this river. And the river itself is this lazy trickster. The Cuyahoga is the crooked river. And one of the fascinating things about the river is it actually didn't carve the Cuyahoga Valley. It kind of runs over some valley, some larger ancient river carved. And the idea of this contingency is you're making something from nothing.
Sure.
And that's kind of the story, I guess, of the magician in that particular card and that angle. I'm happy to do another one. I think that was kind of fun. Was the box turtle. So we were, if you're familiar with box turtles, some folks have seen them kind of walking around in the woods as growing up as kids and stuff. And
yeah,
in southern Ohio, the box turtle is they're all over the place, and they and all over the Southeast. And the concept behind that is the hermit, and the box turtle has this interior life. It's this solitary, wandering creature, and but it seems to have this intelligence and interiority going on that's really interesting. So that was kind of where each of those comes from.
Huh. Very, very cool, Matt. Very, very cool. We have to run a break. More Matt Stansberry when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So Daddy's little girl thinks she's going to prom tonight with some punk who calls himself Snake.
Yeah, they grow up so fast.
Well, not if I can help it, they don't.
Okay, here's what you do. When that kid shows up, Dad's going to be doing a few chores around the house.
Huh?
It doesn't matter the chore. What's important is that it requires the use of a 60cc gas-powered chainsaw and possibly a mask.
I think it's showtime.
He's here. Dad, I want you to meet...
All right, let her rip.
What's that, honey? Hi, Snake. Great to meet you. But wait, where are you going?
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Yeah, hi. I'd like to report a bear sighting.
Location.
My backyard.
Oh, your backyard. Try telling a bear that.
I did, and this bear talked back.
Talking bear, that's rich.
No, wait, it was Smokey Bear.
Smokey? Why didn't you say so?
I did say so.
Continue.
I was burning yard waste.
No, boy.
He told me to burn legally and responsibly, and to remember that if it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave.
And as always, he's right. You know, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans. That means 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented.
Yeah, I know that now.
Thanks to me.
Actually, thanks to Smokey.
As usual, the talking bear gets all the credit. Get your Smokey on. Always burn responsibly and contact your local fire department for open burning regulations. Because 9 out of 10 wildfires can be prevented. Brought to you by Smokey Bear, the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council. Learn more at smokeybear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to After Hours AM, everybody. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis, right along with me,
Eric Olson.
And tonight we are tackling the subject of tarot, but not the subject you're used to. Matt Stansberry has taken tarot and brought it into the world of nature to tell this extraordinary tales. There's many tales here. It's essays. It's called Rust Belt Arcana? I'm sorry.
Arcana!
Arcana. Sorry about that. I was having a second. There was stumbling over my own tongue. Damn it. Damn allergies. I cannot wait till they are gone. But we were leaving, and really Matt is kind of like most of us when you first get into tarot. You start with a cautious eye, and the next thing you know, you're looking at it more and more on the side of, well, I wouldn't say belief flat out, but you're realizing there's something to this intention stuff. And Matt has also given readings to several people and has really dived deep into tarot. And like myself, is intrigued by the cards and how they work. And that is basically the first half hour in a nutshell. Everything you need to know right there.
You summarized it well. Hey, Matt, I'm finding your, sort of brief mental run-throughs with the various personas or characters really interesting. Why don't you pick another one and just walk us through that? I love the Cuyahoga River one, being the trickster and all that. Makes perfect sense when we hear you describe it. Why don't you select another? And we should let everyone know, of course, we are talking about his book, which is Rust Belt Arcana, Tarot, and Natural History in the Exurban Wilds. And we would be very remiss not to mention your illustrator, artist, who is your partner, who is from right here in Northeast Ohio as well. What is his name?
David Wilson, Mr. David Wilson. He does illustrations for a lot of large magazines and works on graphic novels and the like. And he's a great guy to work with.
Oh, very cool.
All right. Well,
very
the
cool.
artwork is amazing.
I was going to
And he did
say, it's beautiful.
The original work for the deck that was created specifically as a companion to the book, and it is really some lovely stuff. And I was looking at his site, and boy, he does an awful lot of really, really interesting and beautiful things. So if you would care to, we'd love for you to maybe pick another character from the natural world and explain the tarot connection vis-a-vis the book.
Absolutely. So I think one of the ones that I think would not be easy to pull together is the Devil. So that card is obviously fascinating and for a lot of people. And when you think about that card, what we picked for that is not what comes to mind. So we picked fireflies.
Interesting.
And, they're actually, you think about fireflies as you're a kid, and I'm sure growing up and anywhere in the upper Midwest, you're running around with a jar, and you have them by your bedside, and you just like some of the fondest memories I have as a kid, or with my own kids, is getting fireflies. But they are just like evil little hedonists and tricksters, and it's amazing. So
bug sex.
Bug porn. Bug on bug action.
So Annie Dillard is one of my favorite writers in the whole world, and one of my favorite lines is like, fish gotta swim, birds gotta fly, but insects gotta do one horrible damn thing after another. And it's just, I'm kind of mangling it, but that's the idea. And so there are, all firefly, flashes are just, you're just mating calls. It's just guys yelling it from across the bar at chicks and stuff. That's essentially what it is. And, it's all sexual communication. But in our region, there's something called the Photurus genus, Photurus pennsylvanica, and it's a predaceous trickster. It's a liar, essentially. It's a species of firefly that mimics the flash patterns of other firefly species. And what it does is when the males are like, oh, hey, it eats them, kills them and eats them immediately. So she's kind of, the femme fatale. And so that's one of my favorite parts. And we go through in that chapter and talk about all the ways that nature is full of lies and what it means to lie. And the father of lies is the devil. And the interpretation of that card in particular is around, something that's bad for you, even though you really still want to do it in a lot of ways. It's kind of being locked into a relationship or a dynamic with a substance or a lover, or something to where it's something that's bad for you, but you still want it. And that's definitely the case with these Photurus fireflies that look so attractive, but wind up leading these males to their deaths.
Well, that is a very, very human emotion, is it not? Oh, my.
Yeah, it is. And I think one of the things, we worry a little bit, I think, in science writing or nature writing about anthropomorphism, but I feel like this is a sin I can live with.
Yeah. I mean, did anyone go, Matt, really? Tarot and insects and wildlife? What? With a skeptical eye, or were people, it was a hard sell, as I'm asking.
Yes, absolutely. And not necessarily to readers. I mean, it worked pretty well for readers, but I will say when, there's folks in here from the Cleveland Museum of Natural History and, the Cleveland Metro Parks, and a lot of folks that I spoke to from, Ohio Department of Fish and Wildlife. And, I'd be like, hey, I'm writing a book. And they're like, oh, great. And I say, I just don't want you to be, I'm going to ask you questions about, owls or cranes, but I don't want you to be surprised in like 6 months when this thing's finished. It's a book about tarot, and, getting that through people's heads was really hard. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a little while to get over some reservations about talking to biologists about tarot cards, but at a certain point, I got just better at saying, "Guys, this is what we're talking about," or "This is the theme of the book." And once they got it, they really got it. I mean, the folks at the Cleveland Museum of Natural History have been super supportive, as well as a few other kind of folks in the natural history space who gave the book blurbs, and it was just really great to connect with those folks and kind of bring something of the divination and magic into that biology field. Was kind of fun to inject that.
Do you find people from the tarot world or the natural world? Of course, there's some intersection there, I'm sure, but probably not a ton of it. Do you find better understanding and reception from those, again, tied to nature and the natural world, or those tied to the more mystical and specifically tarot thus far?
Yeah. The tarot people have been awesome. They've been fantastic to work with as a readership, as an audience. I mean, that was a big change. I mean, birders and fishermen are great. That was where I grew up and spent most of my time. But the tarot folks are the metaphysical shop people. I mean, they're just so supportive and just there. It's a very different audience than your kind of crusty guy with binoculars. Which I count myself as one of. So yeah, it's not
sure
to denigrate that group, but I will say that there's that it's a very welcoming audience. I mean, and culture. It's fascinating to meet this. It's been.
Are you finding that tarot people are interested and surprised at some of the insights that you are bringing in from the natural world? I mean, are people telling you that, whoa, that's a different perspective. You are broadening our scope.
Yeah. So one of the folks who gave a blurb for the book, was probably my favorite author, was Rachel Pollack, and she's in New York, near New York City, and she's just the best writer. And I read all of her books as I was kind of putting the book together as kind of a base layer of research even. And, she was very supportive of the book and just really felt like it was something she hadn't seen before, which is something I was just happy to hear. And it's bioregional, so it's very specific too. And that's one of the things I think is, you can apply this almost anywhere, but it's written in a specific place. And I think a lot of kind of magic and divination is tied to place, or the best of it is. So.
Yeah, I saw that in some of your, I think it was on your site, where you mentioned, I was just kind of reviewing back through all your various writing and the nature writing. I mean, it really is fascinating. I was reading your essay about when you were first arriving in North Carolina, and that how everything was new and different, and you felt kind of alone, and that the key to getting to know and being comfortable and familiar with any location is to know as much as possible, of the wildlife, the flora and the fauna, specifically, to know their specific name, not the genus, but the species. And I thought that really made sense, because when you name something down, to the species level, and something that's specific and peculiar to a given geographical region, then you know that thing and you have a specific relationship. It's no longer general. It's no longer generic. I guess it's personal. It's a personal relationship. So I found that insight fascinating. I'm not sure how you can comment on that, but I wanted to commend you on that. And I think of that in terms of, since I'm not nearly as familiar or in tune with the natural world as you are, but I found that concept really applies kind of across the board. The better you know anything, the more specifically you know anything, then the more real it becomes. And
Sure.
in a sense, it becomes a part of you and you become a part of it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's an antidote for loneliness. A lot of what is in this book and the the stuff that I've been doing now as somebody who's been moving around a lot of their adult life.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing the specific names of things is just a great way to connect to a landscape and, you know, to have strength from and to get some, to make friends. And, like you said, it's a way to care about the place.
Yeah.
Well, we've already blown through 45 minutes very, very quickly. I am fascinated to hear on some of the things you've been working on since you finished the book. You mentioned traditional witchcraft, animism, and chaos magic. Tell us about that.
Sure. It seemed like just a short little step, but it's really taken me quite a ways. And I don't know if your listeners are particularly familiar with the concepts of chaos magic and what that means, but I'm happy to provide a quick overview.
Yeah,
Please
what
do.
is that? Yeah, what is chaos magic?
So the idea behind chaos magic is really, you know, kind of developed by Peter Carroll, and it's kind of been expanded on quite a bit since. And it's the idea of kind of, and I feel like a poor spokesperson, somebody who's just researching it at this point, not necessarily somebody who should be speaking up, but I'll give you my understanding of it. At a conceptual level, the idea is that there are all kinds of aspects of magic and power and ritual in the world, and historically, magic had been very rigid in how it was considered. You know, you have these lineages, you have initiatory rites, and very closed off ideas of it. People taking themselves very seriously, whereas chaos magic is just taking what works and applying it, and taking pieces and parts of things that you realize you see some truth in, or something interesting, something that functions and works for your worldview, and produces effects, and then kind of adopting that and adapting that. So a lot of the books that I've been reading in the time since I finished ARCANA till now have been in that kind of vein of the chaos magicians and a lot of the more modern versions of what that looks like and the people who are doing that. And this is, you know, just been a huge part of my life, I guess, since is somebody like Gordon White, who's a podcaster at Rune Soup, and he's an author, and kind of his community of folks and different magicians and writers who look at this, and it's just been a huge education and kind of terrifying. It's like, just how far do you want to go?
Yeah.
How far do you want to go personally in your like belief system, and being able to be flexible in your belief system and what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really fascinating, and so I've been just diving into that constantly. I feel like I've been living and breathing it for the months since the book's been done.
Man, well, you know,
what can be gained?
Yeah,
from
I was just
that
about
knowledge?
to ask that. What's the payoff?
Toward what end do we learn these things?
So I think one of the things is just, you know, the most important thing, I think, and this is a kind of a ham-fisted quote from Gordon, is you're developing what you might call your pan-dimensional sense organs. I mean, that's kind of, I love that phrase. But the idea is that the universe is talking, whether or not you want to be still and listen.
Mm-hmm.
There are patterns, there are messages, there are things that are happening around us, and there are, you know, entities, and that kind of gets to the idea of animism, is that things have an interiority and motives and desires, and I don't mean you know, your neighbors. I mean your cactus, your
rocks,
forest. Yeah, I mean it's just,
yeah,
at some level, and the idea is when you adopt that into your worldview, it totally changes how you think and how you act, and it whether or not you want to accept that it's something that you're just changing how you think, or if you're actually changing the world, if you look at the kind of that chaos magic framework, there's no difference. If you're changing the way you think, it means you're changing the way you act. It means you're changing the world. I mean, but it's also kind of more. I think the idea of kind of setting your will towards more concrete outcomes as well, and that's a line I'm not ready for. But I am very interested in the idea of kind of the interiority of other creatures, beings, life forms, and also the idea of being able to use that information and perspective to change myself, which also changes outcomes. It's been awesome.
That's amazing. So you're applying these concepts within your real life.
Yeah, in my real life, and it was kind of with the hope for another book, and I don't know what that other book's. It could be years from now because it's not easy to map. It's also almost inarticulatable in some ways to be able to just write down, to use it as a scaffolding. It's going to take a while.
Matt, what's your thoughts on ghosts and the paranormal? Where do you stand on all that? We got to ask you. This is the Thursday show after all.
Absolutely. So I definitely have full, let's see. I've had, I guess, a handful of paranormal experiences, some of them very scary, some of them more benign.
Tell us.
I was going to say.
So one of my favorite ones, my most recent one was, Halloween, and I was reading all these different magic ritual books, and I was like, I'm going to go do the ancestor thing, and my grandfather had passed away not that, a few years back, and so I'm, pouring out a whiskey for him at a crossroads in a creek, and there's a few things that happened, like a big leaf fall, these small, like hop hornbeam trees fell into the creek, and I made my offering of beer and some whiskey, and I look up, and he's not, visibly in front of me, but in my whatever perception I had, he was there, and he told me I was fat and I needed to lose some weight.
What?
I was like, God damn it.
Wow.
So that was kind of dope. And he just popped in, that was it. And then, there's been a handful of other terrifying things. Like I went to Kent State as an undergrad, and my girlfriend, God, it was her and my best friend at the time, still my best friend. They both were like magnets. They were very much in tune with spirits, ghosts, whatever. They were always around them. And I never had that in my life, but being with them, it just kept coming up. I mean, we had a experience where she and I were walking down by the Cuyahoga River through Kent, downtown, and it just felt like we couldn't breathe, both of us. And wordlessly, we went up getting like chased out of the kind of river walkway down there one night. My friend Sean, when we lived together in Kent, was always having those night hags, the pressure on his chest.
Sure.
And one night at that house that Sean and I shared together, I was floating on the ceiling with a charred corpse that had been burned up above my body. Kind of out of body experience. So it was like those two were like some kind of battery, and I would not have those experiences by myself, but those two, it was always feeding.
So
off.
they would bring all that fun with them, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that doesn't sound like all that much fun.
No.
Charred bodies is never a good time.
Yeah, I'm not down with that.
No. I say no to charring the bodies.
I also say no to Gramps telling me to lose some weight, but
that was
that wasn't very nice.
Yeah.
He's right. But,
well, just because he's right doesn't mean he has to say
priorities.
it.
The old dead guy. Come on.
Maybe that was one.
I'd be like, I'm still alive though, ha ha, and then that kind of thing. But still, Grandpa though, still Grandpa.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful because he'll be waiting for you.
So it wasn't all bad. Well, that's interesting. So you're saying your friends, these two friends, really drew the attention. Has that continued in their lives in the ensuing years?
I would have to imagine. I mean, luckily for my friend who is my roommate, he's in LA now, and I'm sure he's still experiencing as much paranormal activity as he ever was. The ex-girlfriend I can't speak to. I don't know what she's up to. Hope
Yes.
she's happy.
The old love and lost girlfriend.
Indeed.
Yep, that's how it always works.
Yeah, we can't always really stay in touch.
Yeah, sometimes they're the ones you're glad that got away.
There's issues.
Yeah,
Indeed.
But
I reconnected, or actually, she found me. I had an article about my website that we founded way back in 2002, believe it or not, that long ago. And you could still get a fair amount of attention with a bigger site back then, and there was still room for independence and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, there was a bio of me with an emphasis, of course, on all the things going on with the website, which was called Blog Critics. And it got picked up by AP. So the story ran all over the country in newspapers, hither and yon. And my college girlfriend, who I was almost engaged to for a while, not quite, but almost. We were talking.
Yeah.
She saw it, and she communicated with me. This is maybe 04, 05, something like that. So for the first time in, at that point, 30 years, I guess, something like that, close to it. And it was nice, and it was fun. It was kind of flattering. And then I just casually mentioned something about, the fact that my wife was pregnant. I didn't hear from her again.
That was it. She came sniffing around, and she left that quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. No one wants to mess with the mama bear.
Well, I didn't hear from her probably for 5 years. And then about every 5 years, she'll just check in and, hey, I'm alive. Yes, good. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. Are you single? That'd be the second question.
Yeah, no, still not.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I'll call
there
you.
There was a brief window there between marriage 1 and 2, but that window slammed closed.
That's what happened. That's life for you.
Almost 21 years.
And had you got a tarot card from reading from Matt, you would have known all that was going to happen.
Well, I would have had an inkling anyway.
Exactly. Okay, Matt, tell us about the book. Where can we get it? What's the best place to buy it at?
The best place to buy it.
Yeah, for you. So you get the most bang for your buck. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, so the publisher is great. It's a women-owned business, local to Cleveland. They kick ass, and I can't recommend that.
They got a website? They got a website you can direct people?
Yeah. It's if you Google Russ Belt Arcana, it'd be easy, or beltpublishing.com.
Very cool. So definitely
Belt
check out
Publishing.
Belt Publishing.
Buy the book from there.
You should.
That's the best deal for Matt. Of course, it's also available on Amazon and all your other normal, usual, regular old places. How do people get a hold of you, Matt? I noticed you had a speaking appearance. What was just maybe last night? Was it
last night in Boston?
Are you still there, or are you back home?
No, I came back home. I've got there's always something going on. So yeah, last night was Boston. Was fun. We've got readings coming up in May up in Cleveland, and I'll be in Cleveland quite a bit. I think this spring and summer. So
we're gonna have to
we're
gonna have to have you back on when you do a reading show.
Oh, I'd love to.
And have callers call in, and you can give them a quick reading.
Oh,
if you're up for that, if that's something you're comfortable with.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So we'd love to be able to do that. We haven't done one of those in eons, so that'd be a lot of fun.
No, we really haven't.
We have callers call in, and you could give a quick reading, a quick, what they call the daily reading. Just
I'd
super
love to do that. I
fast.
think it'd be fun. Yeah.
Well, it's the end of another show, Matt. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a lot of fun. Very interesting how you're able to take nature and tarot and bring them both together. Again, Matt Stansberry is the author, and you're going to want to check out Belt Publishing to get his great book, and it's Rust Belt Arcana. And check that out. I know I look forward to finishing the read, and it's a very colorful book, a lot of great artwork in it, and I think that you all will definitely enjoy that. Till next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and hey, check out tarot. It is actually pretty darn tootin' cool. After Hours AM, a production of Midwest Radio Productions. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And please visit www.americas-most-haunted.com.